for tonight. I'm just going to run through the news items. It was a bit of a challenge this month. If you go to the PowerApps blog and see what's new for November, there are 2 items on there. So I was running around just trying to find out a couple more interesting things. So we've got a couple of things to go through there. Then we've got, Michael's just going to talk quickly around the Power Platform that's been launched in South Africa. We'll then touch on PowerApps over QA Maker. Tulani's going to come through and just give us a demonstration and showcase that. Mornay's then going to show us something cool with PowerApps Advisor. Mark's then got 3 tech tips for us, and then we'll just have an open forum and open discussions. Okay. Any questions from anyone so far, though? Okay, so let's jump into the news. Since, and it's pity David's not here, always complaining about pricing for PowerApps, there is a current special at the moment, 25% off of PowerApps. This is running up until March next year. The only thing is, this is for new customers only. Okay, so if you are working with anyone struggling to get them into PowerApps, know that we are running this promo at the moment. So 25% off, which is not bad. Yes. PowerApps licenses, yes. Yeah, so you have to be new to PowerApps. So you don't necessarily have to be a new Microsoft customer. Yeah, well, yes, it doesn't include those seeded licenses. It's for the premium license, the per user license or the per app license at the moment. Okay, so that's going to help get people involved a little bit more. Formula repair is also now in public preview. And this is going to help with those typing errors that you have while you're busy going through things, making a mistake. It is going to pick up, say that there is a problem, and it's going to give you guidance on how you can fix it, where you can fix it, so you can go and enter it yourself, or you can simply just hit the apply button and it will fix it for you. So we've all done this. We're busy building these apps, struggling with it. You get a comment in the wrong place, or you semicolon instead. This is at least going to pick some of those things up. Syntax errors it will pick up. So this is just helping you move a lot quicker at the end of the day. Yeah, it's going to be really cool once it comes out. Also, Power Apps ideas are coming into play now as well. So based on what you're looking for, you're going to use that natural language on what you're looking for, and it's going to give you a couple of suggestions on how you can display that information. This is going back to the AI engine that we've got inside there. It's really going to help you build out those formulas. So instead of you running around trying to figure out what that formula is or going through a bunch of blogs and that trying to find it out, this is going to help for those more common scenarios. Okay. That would be cool, actually. Clippy pop up there. Yes, yeah. Design idea, well, there's design ideas from PowerPoint's actually been pushed out to a full-blown designer now. So there was a session on at Ignite talking about it was all the learnings from that. We've now brought it into its own application, so you can design pamphlets and a whole bunch of things out of there. Yeah. We've also made some changes to working in environments in Power Platform. We've seen this for a while. You can see you can now group your environments, sort them by different areas. I know this was a challenge for us internally. If we built an app in the one environment, trying to find the environment was always a challenge. So now you can at least split it up, ones that have been built with Dataverse, ones that you've set up in trial, and you can go in and customize this as you want, so it's easier for you to find the right environment that you're working in. I wish there was a way for us to be able to lock to a specific environment, like if you're always working in the same environment all the time. Yeah, to default that, hopefully that is coming soon. So I don't know how many times I've been working on something, you build out an app, you then start building out the flow, you try and look, and it's in a different environment. You've got to move things across. We're also announcing general availability of managed environments. Okay, so this is now officially supported. There is also a weekly digest that's going to be sent out. And this is going to let your admin see what is happening in that environment, how well is it being consumed, how many new things are going in there. Managed environments have been around for probably be in preview for about a year, maybe more. More than that, eh? Oh, it's less than a year for managed environments. Okay, but now it is generally available and you can start using this. This is going to help pro devs when they're making sure they're following their proper implementation guidelines, their life cycles, to be able to use these confidently, and at least they're now getting those insights out as well, especially with lots of developers starting to pick up in this space. I'm seeing that more and more every day, so hopefully this is something that's going to help them out. Okay. Anything else that anyone has picked up in the news or that they just want to share? Okay, perfect. Michael? Yeah.
So we had an Envision event in Cape Town and Joburg that was massively attended and successful.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Mike. Yeah, Power Platform in
Yes, hi everyone online. It caught me by surprise, actually. Like suddenly someone said to me the next day, hey, did you know Power Platform has launched in South Africa? And I had no idea that it was announced. So it's available in all tenants. If you go into the Power Platform Admin Center and you go and create a new environment, you can now choose South Africa as the location. How pretty cool is that?
Is there any way to migrate?
So Jonathan asked, is there any way to migrate? So what I'll do is when I do the tech tips a little bit later on, I'll just point to an article. But essentially what you can do is you can log a ticket and you can ask for an environment to be moved. I also didn't know this. You can actually ask for an environment to be moved from one tenant to a different tenant. Did you know that? Well, I didn't know that either. But you can move environments between tenants. But there's also a geo move. So you can take an environment that's in Europe and you can ask for it to be moved to South Africa or Australia or the US or wherever. And there's no cost involved in that. It's just a support ticket and they do it for you. There are some things to be aware of. For example, that's actually only supported for production environments and sandbox environments. You can't do that for trial or dev or any of those environments. And be aware, model-driven apps, when you move geos, the URL changes to that model-driven app. So I think we are crm14.dynamics.com, and if you were in Europe, it's crm4. So your model-driven URLs will change if you do move. So there is an implication there. And just a few other implications. There's actually a couple of features that are still missing, though. So let me just go through them off the top of my head. So number one, AI Builder. So if you create an environment in South Africa and you go to AI Builder, it says this is not available in the region. So if you need to still use AI Builder, leave your environment in Europe or wherever it is. Process Advisor in Power Automate, same thing. It shows in the menu, but when you click it, it says, sorry, this region is not yet supported. Another one is data flows. So data flows are not there for the South African environment. In fact, they're just not even showing on the menu at all. So it's not like you click it and it says no region. The region's not supported. It's just not in the menu. So just be aware of that. These things will ultimately come to South Africa, but it's just a timing thing. So yeah, be aware of those. And I think there was one more. Data flows, process advisor, AI builder. I think it's just those that aren't there. But otherwise, it's good to go. I've played around. It looks cool, works. Okay, so I'm just speaking about the Power Platform, but Dynamics 365 also launched in South Africa as well. And that's, we need a table to explain what's what's here, what's not here. Like it's a lot more detailed, but certainly the core services are here. Dynamics 365 sales, customer service, finance, supply chain. So the main modules are here. There's a few fringe cases that aren't, but that's it. I didn't prepare anything on that discussion. But from a Power Platform perspective, you know, we mostly there. You can't, as far as I'm aware, move your default environment. Default environment's a very special environment. I don't see a way to move that. I'm looking into it, and if I find a way, maybe there's a secret, someone that knows something that I don't know. But I don't think you can move default environment, but other environments you can. So the question, just for those that are online, is why would you want it locally, basically? And yeah, there are a few organizations that I have interacted with who really want it in the borders of South Africa. But for the most part, actually, most of our customers, Microsoft's customers, use it quite fine from Europe. And actually, many organizations are very happy with the privacy and protection that the EU boundaries give them. So that's why we've actually got really good adoption on the Power Platform and Dynamics in Europe. It's not like people are saying, no, we're not doing it. But there are some. And latency, like, once again, all of us who have been building Power Apps and Automate and stuff, we probably don't even notice any latency issue, right? Like we use it and we're like, actually, this is pretty good. This is good. But it will be just a bit better. Like now, latency is like, let's say, 10, 15 milliseconds, where to Europe it's closer to 200 milliseconds. Probably won't notice it actually that much, but certainly stuff like D365 Finance and, you know, there are things that are much more latent dependent. So you'll just get a better experience for sure. And then it becomes interesting when your Azure services are locally that you're integrating with, but your instances in Europe. So actually, it would just be better if they were together. It gives better scenarios. So overall, the story is just much better if you can use it in South Africa. But hey, if you're using it in Europe, it's good for you. Carry on. Any other questions online? HTML. Just comments. Bad comments, good comments. Okay. Just while Tulani sets up, and I'm sure Tulani will introduce himself in a minute or two, I've got a very special prize that I'm giving out today because it's been in the corner of my room for about a year, maybe 2 years. Tion won a bag during COVID, and but it was online, so he could never receive it. And then, you know, the stars aligned today, and so here it is. It does look like a bird has done something on it because it's been sitting forever. But congratulations. Well, there's your bag. Cool. Longer. It's probably longer than a year since he won that. Oh, it was the Christmas event. Yes. So well done. Enjoy your bag. I'm sure you're going to win another one in a few weeks' time. So, Tulani, I'm going to hand over to you, dude. And I don't know how you're going to do this holding.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've used mic. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tulani. I'm a low-code cloud solution architect from Customer Success Unit. So yeah, I also look after Power Platform, mainly Power Apps, Power Automate, and PVA as well. Okay, so for today's agenda, I just wanted to take you through the QNA management app. So basically, the idea behind this application is to allow administrators in an organization to be able to administer their questions and just manage all the questions, update the questions, and be able to do all the administration that is necessary. So I don't know if you've heard about QNA Maker before. Yeah, maybe before we get into the application itself, let me just walk you through. Right, so on my screen, this is basically Language Studio. So basically, this is an Azure Cognitive service that allows you to manage, that allows you to host your FAQ questions. So what it does is it creates a conversational layer of your frequently asked questions. Right? So I'm sure you have seen, can you hear me? Cool. All right. Yeah. So I'm sure you have seen like some organizations, they have like FAQ, frequently asked questions on their website, right? So in order for you to search for an answer, you'll have to, make sure that you type in the right words and match the questions that are there. But what the service does is it's backed up by NLP. So it allows you to just write anything and then it'll search for that question and give you an answer. So just to give you a quick demo.
That's what you said today. We were trying for 100. Oh, you mean?
Yep. So basically, this is one of my knowledge bases that I have in my language service. It's called General Knowledge Base, KB. So I uploaded some frequently asked questions using a public URL, right? Microsoft 365. So I can just go ahead and test just to see how it works, just to give you a bit of taste. So I can say Microsoft 365, and then it's going to give me an answer, right? So notice that I didn't really have to type in, the exact words, right? So it's clever enough to pick it up, right? So in this service, I have a couple of sources in here, right? So this is, sorry, I have 3 knowledge bases, right? So I have Virtual Assistant KP, General KP, and Surface KP. So, I separated these because, it's different context, right? So these questions are different. So now the question is now, how do you manage this, right? So you can go ahead and just log into the service and update your questions and add more questions. But it's not easy if you're going to, if you have a lot of questions and sometimes you might not have the admin rights to this service, right? So how do you handle that, right? So this is where the QNA Maker, the QNA management app comes in. So I'm just gonna switch over to my other screen. Right. So this is basically a Canvas app. It has all the questions from the service. I can filter through using these filters over here. And I can go ahead and click on each question and then see what, just see a bit of information about this question and, which knowledge base does it belong to, some metadata, some prompts, the source as well. And if I want, I can go ahead and edit this question in this app, right? So we're just gonna do that for demonstration. So for example, I'll say, I'll just modify this question. Demo. Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, and then hit submit. Yep. Yes. Yes. So it pulls all the sources that are available for you. Yeah. And when you update the questions, you can specify which source you want this question to go into. Yeah. just need to restart this. Yeah, so yeah, sorry guys, my connection is a bit slow. Let's just give it a second. Yes, actually. Okay, let's just give it a few seconds. Yep. Yes, yes. I'll show you actually how that works as well. Yeah. So yeah, this demo that I'm showing you here, it's more like an end-to-end demo. So it shows you like from a point where a user types in a question within a bot and then accessing the answers from the language service. Right, right. Okay, so I think that's fine. Let me just modify this again. Okay, there you go. All right, so now so behind the scenes, there's basically some Power Automate flows. So they are going to pick up this question and then connect to the language service and update this question. Yeah. And then another scenario, another common scenario that I've seen customers struggle with is basically how do you handle unanswered questions, right? So if you notice here on my on this dashboard, there's this button here called review. So if you click here, it will take you to a page with all the questions that have been received from the chatbot that have not been answered, and then now an admin can go in and review this question and provide an answer, right? And then provide the source, all the necessary information. But now, if your knowledge base is very huge and you're receiving a lot of traffic from from the bots, then you can assign these questions to other administrators. So now you can do a divide and conquer, maybe four of us. I can assign Michael, assign Jonathan, and then maybe 5 questions each, and then they can give an answer and then submit and change the status to complete, and then it goes back to the master knowledge base and update. So now next time when the users come back to the bots and type in a question, they'll be able to get an answer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if I go to, I have one bot that by the way, this application is agnostic, so you don't need to use a PVA bot. If you have an Azure chatbot, you can still use it, right? So for example, here, this is my Composer chatbot. It's just a simple bot. So I'm gonna go ahead and restart this and test it out. So, okay. Start again. So I'm gonna say, what is application insights? So this question is not available. Hopefully it's not available within the knowledge base. Okay, so this is the kind of response that you'd get. Sorry, I did not find an answer. Yeah. Yeah. So now, if we go back to the application, so maybe let's give it a few seconds. For the question to pull through. But let's just double check here within the flows if that question is now available. So I'm gonna go to. So they have a lot of flows here, but yeah, I'll show you which flows are relevant for this application. Right. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah, I forgot. I need to trigger this manually, but the idea is this uses a recurrence trigger, so you can agree in your organization to say maybe after a week, this flow should run and fetch some questions from from application insights. Yeah, so I can't wait for that. That'll take too long. Yeah, so it uses so there's some REST APIs. So language service supports some REST APIs. So we just, yeah, it's not. So from the PVA side of things, we're using the special connectors. But then from the flow, we're just using HTTP connector. Yeah. So as long as you have the URL, you have the credentials, then it's sorted. Yes. Yeah. So let me just quickly do this. Yeah, so what's happening here is this flow is basically pulling questions from Azure Monitor, right? So what I did is I enabled telemetry logging for my language service. So that's why I'm able to get this information. Okay, so this ran successfully. So now I'm gonna go to the app. So hopefully we should see that question coming up. Just check here if there's something, because sometimes there's a delay. So yeah, that's why it's not yet there. But earlier I had tested it, and this was one of the questions that I asked, and then it pulled through. Yeah. So you can go ahead now and assign. Suzanne. And then you can change the status to pending or whatever the case. Yeah. So that's basically the idea. So behind the scenes, this app uses about 4 flows. So there's one called add and edit item in custom question answering. So custom question answering service that's the name of the upgraded version of QNA Maker within language service, right? So if I go in here, yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, this one, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh no, it's the other one. Yeah, this one. Yes. Yeah. So what happens here is there's a table that I created called QNA Insights. So this is the table that that will be storing all the questions from application insights. And then from there, we then use the connector for application insights to query our Azure Monitor service, right? So this is basically this is basically coastal query language that I'm using here. Just quickly run this. Sorry. Okay, just run this one. Yeah. So this is basically the query. I just tested it here quickly. Yeah, and then actually I think one of the questions is come through, but yeah. Yeah, and then what I do after that is writing the telemetry into the table called QNA Insights in my database table. That's basically this flow. Yeah. Yeah, so what it does, yeah, it'll just go and append to the table. Okay, and then there's this one. So this one is the one now that connects to the language service, right? The custom question answering service. So as I said earlier, we're using the REST endpoints to connect to the service. So if you go to your language service, if you haven't used it before, let me just open here. You get all the connection information from this. Just wait for it to load. Just expand this. So for example, this is one of my knowledge bases in here. So I just go to deploy. So once I'm done creating this knowledge base, I just go to deploy and then get prediction URL. So these are the details. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. But yeah, so the branch here basically checks, if this is a new question that is coming in or it's an existing one. So if it's an existing one, we simply update because the endpoints are different. Yeah. All right. So yeah. Then the other flow is the sync data flow. So what it does, this one, is it fetches the questions from the QNA Insights table and then updates the master knowledge base table. So once the person that has been assigned has provided an answer to the question and then has indicated that this is complete and gotten an approval, then this question will be moved over to the master knowledge base table. And then from there, that process for adding the question to the service is going to kick off. Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, any questions? Oh, but yes. Yeah. So yeah, before we get there, there's just one more thing that I forgot to show you. Yeah, so if I go back here, yeah, there's this QNA Insight. So this one basically opens up your Power BI dashboard that shows you all, different types of analytics. So you can customize this one the way you want and add your own analytics. Okay. This is also from an admin perspective. Yes. So so you can get an overview of everything that's happening. Yeah, it gives you an idea of what are some of the topics that you might include maybe in future. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if you're interested in this, there's a GitHub repo, but I haven't made it public yet. There's just a few things that we're still working on. That we still want to fine tune first before we release it. But yeah, if you're interested, happy to share this with you. Yes. Yes, forgot to speak about that. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, I already have my PVA chatbot here opened. So also it uses some built-in connectors to connect to the language service. So if we go ahead on the flows, there is a flow that is being used by PVA. Yeah, so it uses a connector called generate answer from project. So this is the language service connector. Then you specify the name of your knowledge base within your language service, and then just pass in some questions there. Yeah, so this already integrates with my PVA chatbot. So this is my test bot. So I can go ahead and I've asked a few questions here, and there was no luck. What is, sorry. Yeah. 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 So yeah, like I said, this is agnostic. You can call the QNA this language service anywhere you want, because there's the SDK. If you're using the bot framework, if you're using PVA, there's already a connector available within Power Automate, and if you're using bot framework Composer, there's also a connector there. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, so for example, this is my Surface Virtual chatbot, right? What it connects to my Surface knowledge base within the language service. Maybe for those that are still new to the PVA, what you see here is basically the topics that are available out of the box. And you can add more topics. So basically a topic is a dialogue, right? A conversation, right? So if there's a scenario that you want to include, you simply create a topic and then define that conversation flow, right? So for example, this is one of the topics that are there. It's a greeting one. There's a trigger at the top. For example, if a user comes in and says hi, hello, or whatever phrase that is being used for greeting, this chatbot is going to understand based on these trigger phrases that, hey, this is a greeting, and then trigger this, invoke this topic, and start greeting the user, right? So yeah, for example, also here, this is the custom one that I created. It's called password. So here I wanted to enable a user to reset a password, right? And as you can see, there's trigger phrases that correspond to that. So I can come here and say change password. And then it'll understand and invoke the right flow, right? So yeah, so yeah, there's some AI capability behind as well. Actually, it's being backed up by Louis, right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, now I can select forgot password, and then it's gonna ask me a couple of questions. Just gonna put an arbitrary number here. Okay. Yeah. Actually, yeah, it's just that it's expecting a number here, so I'm just gonna click this. So the way I've designed this flow is that, you know, if you have forgotten your password, then I'll ask you for your date of birth, just to, you know, verify you. I know it's silly, but yeah, I think it's for demo purposes, it's fine. And then after that, it's just going to send you back, you know, that a message via email to say, okay, forgot password. Maybe in a real scenario, maybe it's sending me an OTP or whatever the case may be. Okay. So what you see here is basically a connection that I'm making to Power Automate, and using a connector for Outlook to send a message. So I did that, I think, within yeah, a minute or so, right? Yeah. So yeah, so that's one flow that I created. But now there might be a situation whereby you know, the user's intent is not supported here within the flow, within the topics that you have created, right? So in that case, what PVA does is there's something called fallback topic. So each and every request that it doesn't understand, it'll just forward it to this fallback topic. And then from there, that's where now you can connect to things like the your QNA maker service, and yeah, you basically assuming that this is one of those frequently asked questions that are coming in from the user. Otherwise, you can just say, you know, I don't, or maybe just escalate this query to an agent or someone, right? So if I navigate back to topics, you see there's a topic called fallback. So this is where I implemented, I connected to the language service, right? By just using using Power Automate, okay? And then if you just want to escalate this user, you can also do that using the escalate topic. So yeah, I think the nice thing about PVA is that it handles quite a lot of scenarios. So yeah, I don't know if I missed something. Yeah. Cool.
Sure. So I'm a maker in this instance, in this environment. But let's say I've got trouble, I don't know how to package this or actually put it in a solution. Right? So ideally what you would do, you would phone a friend or reach out into support, or even if there is a sense of excellence into that maker community to understand how to do it. So what we've introduced in the product set itself is in actual fact a virtual agent that you can utilize and ask your questions to, and see how that can assist you. So what you'll see is in this make.PowerApps environment, in the bottom right here, I've got a little Ask a Virtual Assistant, right? And it will pop up a screen with the virtual assistant that's going to ask you a range of questions in order to assist you. Just give me 1 second. Apologies, I think the internet at the office is not ideal. Maybe refresh. Yes, while you're editing the file. So what I'll do is, let me just see if I can restart this. And of course, this will take forever now to load when you're showing it on a demo screen, right? Oh man. But ideally, while this is loading, what you want to do is that you want to be able to firstly make use of the public resources that's available. So it will go through the Microsoft documentation, and then if it can't assist you through there, what you want to do is, in actual fact, also include internal documentation. So let's say you've got a application, or you got some style guides, or you got even application guidance that you store within a SharePoint site or a Yammer site. You can have that as well as a point of interest to get information from. And I think lastly is that if the bot can't essentially assist you, what will happen is it can actually go and ask other makers to assist you with these kind of questions. So let's hope it works now. Yep, it's loading. So you see here's the bot. So I can just engage in a conversation. So you see the private virtual agent goes through a bunch of questions that you can see. So now I'll just post a question. So how can I create a solution? Because I want to package my awesome application I've created. And what you'll see is, it firstly talks around what is the solution, some guidance around ISVs, and it's a little bit of a wizard-driven event. So I can just say next to continue, and so on. You see here it goes and says exactly what you require from a database perspective, what you need to do from the admin perspective, and it takes you through all of that. And this is the public content that it gets, right? Now, let's say I want to enable this within my organization, but a little bit with more information and more details. The first thing that I need to do is that I go into my PowerApps Admin Center. Now, inside the PowerApps Admin Center, under your resources, what you'll have is you'll get this PowerApps Assets. And underneath there is it will open up and give you different options available. So the first one is where you can specify documentation. So what I've utilized here is just a SharePoint site that I've created when I set up the COE. The second one is my Teams that, once again, I've also created when I set up the COE. And also, if you've got a Yammer community, even the Yammer community. Now, you'll see on the second tab, I've got advisors. So I can go and I can actually add people in here as advisors. So let's say I've got a bunch of people that's very, that's got the advisor capability because they know the software. You can add them in here. It's very simple. You just select and you add a name, and we'll add that person in there. But also, what you want to do is you want to be available as an advisor. So one thing is that you have the advisors in here, and the second one is that you need to be available as an advisor. So what you want to do is, let's say I've selected now this user as an advisor. Let's say Alicia here is now an advisor as well. If she goes into here and she says PowerApp settings, you'll see here there's an advisor program. And she can, in actual fact, set her availability. So she can say, yes, I am available. So if the bot can't answer the questions, and it goes through all of those different documentation sites that I specified. Eventually what it will do, it will connect to Alicia here, that's an advisor, right? And you can also say what's the communication method. So do we need to contact her through Teams, or do we need to contact her through email? So you can also specify that, right? You'll see all of this is still in preview, but I think from a concept perspective, it's quite powerful, because this is I think that if we expand on top of this with having people in a center of excellence, or even a knowledge center, or even KB articles and those type of things, you can expand on this as well. So this would be specific. So the question is this capability similar to the swarms, right? So essentially what will happen here, this is specific to Power Apps and makers and builders and advisors, right? Where swarms would be more around a customer's topic and a company-wide things, right? So I would probably have an advisor here that advises me on using correct formulas and errors and things like that. And where swarms and dynamics comes in is we will have a team that would might be advised on fixing a camera issue or something like that, client issues, right? Yeah. So essentially very short and sweet, but also from a product perspective, right? In the application documentation perspective, there's quite a lot of documentation that we have around this topic. I can post this in the chat as well, and it will actually show you how to set this up and how to connect this in the virtual agent resources and different topics. So that was my tech tip for the day. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Mike. Do you want?
David's usually the guy that tells jokes. I realize clock in. Yeah, Gonzos, my friend, Gonzos. Now you have, yeah. Okay, so I'm doing 3 tech tips. And earlier on, I was laughing quietly at Tulani, who was battling to hold the microphone in one hand and type. And now I'm in the exact same situation. So it's like, okay, this is really, next time we need a hands-free, yeah. Okay, so the first tech tip, I was trying to build this fancy calculator application for someone as a kind of a prototype, and I ran into this issue and it baffled me for some time. And so maybe you're going to run into this issue, but it's all around formatting, and specifically formatting of currencies or decimals in labels and text boxes in PowerApp. So I've got a simple way of demonstrating this. Maybe I can zoom in a bit. You'll see it even better. There we go. So the way that this example is working is I've got 2 text boxes here. They both hold numbers. So if I go here, I've set the format to be numbers. And this label is the sum of those 2 text boxes. Okay, but I want it formatted as a currency. And the way that you do formatting in Power Apps is you use a function called text. So you can see there's the, the adding of those 2, and even highlights them, so smart. And then the way that I format that addition of those 2 numbers is you use the text function, And then you specify essentially, I'll call it the locale, and then your formatting, you know, how you want it to look. Where do you want the comma? Where do you want decimals, etc. And so if I've got 100 times 3, $300. It's cool, okay? Like that's amazing. Okay, the only problem is we live in South Africa. And often what we want is we want this in rands, okay? And so just a pop quiz question. This label here that I'm hovering on, what data type is it currently storing? It's text, right? It's not a number. Why? Because I used the text function. Okay, so if I now make this a little bit more complicated, because now I actually want to take the results, so this thing, and I want to add some math to this label. So I want to take this label, and I want to times it by this thing over here to equal this label over here. Okay, so if I look at this formula, it's doing the same thing. It's taking that label, there we go, label, text, and this text box, it's multiplying them together. And then once again, I want it formatted as currency, so I'm saying text, using the text function, and formatting it as currency. Now, you're probably saying that shouldn't work. And it shouldn't work, but PowerApps is super smart, and it's like, I guess, implicitly doing a conversion for me. But what I should probably really do, because this thing here is actually text, I should probably use the value function here. So the value function is the reverse. So it takes text and it converts it to a value. So it's the inverse of text. Okay, but I don't need to do it because it kind of works. And so this all works great until I want this as a South African rand. So the way that you do this, just by the way, is you change the $ to a rand sign. And can you see, oh dear, what happens? So what's happening now is exactly the issue where it was implicitly converting, but if I go here now and I look at the error, it's going to tell me that 300 Rand cannot be converted to a number. So that label now is holding text. Okay, and it can't figure out how to convert it to a number. And it doesn't matter what you do, you will not be able to convert it to a number. I'm lying, but if I go around this now and I say, actually, let's convert it to a number by using value, it's saying I can't. So even using the value function, it will not convert it back to a number. So now my formulas all fail from here on out. Make sense? Okay. So how do you solve this problem? How do you solve this problem? Yeah, take the rand sign out and just charge in US dollars. If we change the business model, we'll be fine. So look, I guess in an ideal world, you don't really want to do calculations based on outputs of labels. You probably want to use variables that hold true numbers, and then your labels and text boxes are just displays of that. So what I'm actually doing the calculation on is the variable value, not the output of a label field. Okay, but sometimes it's just not possible to do that because this is the way that the application works. And so what's interesting that I found is the value function itself can accept a parameter of the locale. So if I now say, actually, the value that you need to reverse engineer for me back to a value, if I tell it it's ENZA, it'll work. Okay, I promise you it will. So if I just go here we've got an example. And this is because I'm not typing here. Can you see how it's all flowing through now fine? And that is because if I go, for example, to this one here, you'll see when I use the value function on this label, I'm specifying that actually the locale of what you need to convert back is ENZA. I haven't tried this on dates. I guess dates you generally don't just like add. You'll use a date function. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably something to do with that. I mean, the text function can be used to format into dates and times, long, short, custom, MMM-DD, however you want it. But then when you want to reverse engineer it, you probably have to do a similar thing like, I'm guessing. I haven't played. Okay, so that's tech tip number 1. Was that useful? Yeah. No. I've tried this literally for hours. You cannot change this to EN-ZA. There are others like EN-FR, but EN-ZA is not one of the supported ones here. Yes. Yeah. But value does support it. So there we go. If anyone comes up with a better way of doing this, let me know. I mean, I might be doing this whole thing wrong, but this seems to work fine for me. Okay, tech tip number 2. I wanted to create this control. So this control allows you to make sense? This is not a standard control on the toolbox. There's a slider, which is quite cool, but there's not this one, and I just wanted this one. Okay, so I've made it. So essentially the way it works is it's a text box, and then it's 2 icons. Now what's interesting, there's another tech tip here, but this icon here is an icon which is the add icon. Do you know? Well, now you do. There is no icon, so there's an icon called add. There is no icon called subtract or minus, or I'm like, no! And of course I could go and find an icon somewhere, but I just wanted to use what's there out of the box. So the first little tip is this icon here is called a horizontal line. It's just a line with a border around it, so it looks like a minus. But it's not supposed to be a minus. There's also a vertical line anyway. So that's the first tech tip. The way that I actually make this work is the value of this text box is equal to a variable called var counter. And then when I select this one, I increment var counter by 1. When I select this one, I decrement var counter by 1. Like in other programming models and paradigms, what you would try and do is when you click this, you would try and say, set text box 1 equal to text box 1 plus 1. No, that's not the way PowerApps works. What you do is you set it to a variable and then you mess around with the variable essentially. So the value of this is equal to var counter, and then yes, correct. Good catch. Yes, 100%. But you could make this read only, so they can't change it. There's a few things like that you could do. Yeah. Happy? Tech tip number 2. Amazing. I'm sure there's better ways to do this. Once again, if anyone knows and would like to share, do it. Okay, the last one was I was building an app and I just wanted to upload a file. Okay, it could be to SharePoint, it could be to Dataverse. In my case, it was to Dataverse. It was to a field in Dataverse. There's a file type column in Dataverse. And I just, as part of the UI, I needed to upload a file or allow a user to upload a file. Do you know, now you do, there is no file upload control. There is no file upload control. If you go to the toolbox at the top here, you go insert, there's no file upload. Okay. So there's a few ways to solve this problem. One is you can literally, let's just create a new screen. And I go to insert. And if I put in a form, and I bind this form to a data source. So I've got this table called infrastructure projects. And one of the columns in this table one of the columns in this table is a file type. So if we go down here, design document, and actually let me just take out all the rest. Remove. I don't have to remove these, but like it's just what I'm doing. Okay, and we'll make. So there's a file upload control. So one thing I can do is just use a form, take off all the other fields that I don't need, and then have a button and then submit the form. That'll work. That's probably actually the easiest way to do it. Make sense? Yeah. And it does work. I've tried it. I promise it works. Have another button here. When on select, you submit this form. And then it'll go into, in this case, my table. Everything will just work. And I probably think that's probably the best way to do it. But just to make life complicated, I said, okay, but I don't want to use a form. For whatever reason, maybe you don't want to use a form. So what you can do is you can go into this form, and you can go and find this control, and you can copy it. And you can go to another screen, and you can paste it. Yeah, I don't know what I've just pasted, but it doesn't look like the control. Oh, it is. There it is. And now I've got the file upload control all by itself. And it has properties, like it has an attachments property. So now from the attachments property, I can get access to the attachment that someone's attached, and I can do something with it. So for example, I can submit it to a Power Automate flow that then goes and writes it to wherever I need it to be written to. Make sense? So if I go here and I look at this thing over here, what's going to happen is it's calling a flow, and my flow is called save attachments the old way. And it takes some parameters, this flow, and one of them is actually the attachments collection, and I'm just taking the first record, so I'm only uploading one file, and the value is essentially the bytes. So if I go and look at this flow, that's not it. It's the old way. It's this one, which is actually the new way. So just ignore that name. Yeah, so what's happening now is I'm actually going into the Dataverse. I'm finding a very specific record, and then I'm going into that record, and I'm uploading the file that's coming through from the PowerApp. Pretty cool. It is pretty cool. But you don't need this whole flow. You can literally just submit the form and just have one field in it. Less work, less error. And then just, by the way, this is where it ends up landing if I do it. So should we just test it quick? I've got too many windows open. Oh, that's not going to work. There's no project name. There is a record in my database called foo. Let me just go back there. There we go. The project name is called foo. No file. Let's upload a file. So this is calling the flow. The flow will find the record with the name of foo. And in theory, oh, there it is in the database. Yeah, it's quick. It's quick. And that's it. That's the end of my tips. Are there any questions online? Is anyone looking at online? Is there anyone left online? Oh, awesome, awesome. Anyone online got any other general questions, comments? Anyone in the room, questions, comments? Want to discuss a topic around Power Apps, Power Automate? Oh, sorry, I did remember the other thing that's not available in the South African environment. If you create an environment in South Africa, Power Virtual Agents. So if you need a Power Virtual Agent, the environment must be in Europe. But you can still create a Power Virtual Agent in Europe. It has a flow, and that flow can call a Dataverse in South Africa, right? So, you know, from an integration perspective, you shouldn't be limited in any way. You can still use your Dataverse environment that's in South Africa if that's you need it to talk to the database. Okay, so the question was, in Dataverse, you're limited to a single file to upload, and then there's also the SharePoint question. So I'm not entirely with you, but what I can say is I've built quite a few solutions where you upload multiple files to the Dataverse. So for example, let's just for instance say I've got a scenario where I am applying for a job. And when I apply for a job, that's going to be one record in the database, in the Dataverse, my job application. But I'll upload multiple files. I'll upload my CV. I'll upload my ID, my driver's license. I need to upload multiple files. So obviously one thing you could do is in that table, create a column for each type of file. So you can create a file type column for CV, a file type column for ID, etc. But that also can be a little bit limiting. What I often do is I have a one-to-many relationship with a joined table, and that table is literally file name as a column and the file as another column. And so then my job application record has a one-to-many relationship, so I can upload n amount of attachments into the Dataverse. So I do that quite regularly. And of course, yes, the other option is use SharePoint and upload the files into SharePoint. And then you have essentially, like, I'll call it a join. It's a URL that's kept in the Dataverse that points to the library or the folder or whatever it is that lives in SharePoint. I don't know if that answers the question. Yes, you have to enable that as a feature in Power Platform. I mean, you don't actually have to. You can roll your own that does that. But there is a native feature that enables that, yeah. And I often get the question of, so when should I put the files in SharePoint and when should I put the files in Dataverse? And SharePoint is great for document management, collaboration. So if you check in, check out, co-authoring, it's a great document and collaboration tool. So if you need any of those types of features, put them in SharePoint. If you just need the file just to live, like you just need a copy of it, like it's more like I just need a reference to it, but no one's ever going to work on it, then I probably actually, just personally, I probably wouldn't put it in SharePoint. I would put it in the Dataverse if that's where all my other data is. Because now I don't have to worry about two data locations. Like, can they get out of sync? Could someone delete this but not this? Like, I don't want to worry about that. So if it's just all in the Dataverse, then I'm happy. Goodbye. Yeah. Yeah. So the comment was, just for those online, I don't know if, are we still online? Okay. The power's off here, by the way. Is that often clients say, okay, the document must be in SharePoint and then just put the URL in Dataverse. And I guess you just got to ask why do you want that? Because maybe it's better just to have the file in Dataverse. But there are some good reasons for it to have in SharePoint, especially if there's collaboration and it's a working document. Yes, yeah. Yes. And maybe like a final version. So maybe it's a combination. Maybe the scenario says, hey, we create and author the document through a lifecycle in SharePoint. And once it's finalized, it goes into the Dataverse as a final record in PDF form or something like that. And the other interesting thing, just a note on that, and I can talk for hours, is under the hood, when you put a file into Dataverse as a file attachment, as a file data type, under the hood, that's Azure Blob Storage, actually, just by the by. You don't see that, you don't care about it for the most part, but it's also cool from a cost perspective because it's not expensive storage. You know, like in terms of Dataverse storage, it's the cheapest of all the Dataverse storage options. And you get a lot of it by default most of the time anyway. So, yeah. Mona had a question, a comment? Yeah. So Mona was just saying document classification, search. Like SharePoint's very good at metadata, classification, taxonomy, you know, all these types of things around documents. Yes, and I guess the other interesting thing that Morne was saying is when it's in SharePoint, you can also just navigate to SharePoint and see the files. So maybe that's, you know, like CVs, maybe it comes through some way, but then HR, they're just going to access a document library, you know, and so then it makes sense for it to live in the library. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of things to consider there. It's a good discussion topic, actually. Yeah. Any other questions, topics to discuss? So Mornay is commenting again on the side. Under his breath, I don't know if he really like wants to say this out loud, but you know, he just takes everything always that one step too far. So basically, I think what he's saying is also think about where does that file come from, and could it be harmful? So if you're allowing people to upload a CV over the internet through a Power Pages portal and it lands in the Dataverse, and that thing has got a virus, like, what's your strategy? Or if it lands in SharePoint, what's your strategy? How are people going to consume this thing? And there are protections within the service as well to look at these things, but yeah, I guess a consideration to think about. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the technical details, but I'd just love to say, don't stress. You know, the service has you protected. You know, if there's a virus in a file that goes into SharePoint or the Dataverse, don't worry. Like, but yeah. But you know, it's belts and braces. Never assume. You know, there's some new thing on the market that's out there that's a problem that, you know, antivirus software is not protecting. Mornay's clapping his hands to say, let's finish this thing up and go and get some food. Anything else? Any other questions online?